Today, I'll be interviewing Christine Richards. Christine Richards is a professional graphic designer, writer, and editor specializing in nonfiction book coaching and design. She is an avid letter writer, collage artist, and founder of Composition 1206 and Postmark 1206. January 23rd was National Handwriting Day, and Christine's book, A Snail Mail Guide to Cursive Writing Practice, illustrates that snail mail is not only alive and well, but an effective way to reach out and connect with people. With her new book and a stash of note cards on hand, she is well equipped to use two of her favorite techniques for building a personal brand: writing a book and sending handwritten notes to colleagues. Welcome to the PR Maven Podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I've been strengthening brands through PR for over 35 years, and now I'm celebrating the success of executives, influencers, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all around the world, all of whom have cultivated their brands and broadened their networks through traditional and digital networking methods. Each week, I interview one of these interesting and influential individuals and provide an opportunity for you, the PR Maven Nation, to gain insights from their strategies and stories. So stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening. So, Chrissy, tell us about your career and how you got into it in the first place.
Well, it all started with a job at the National Park Service. It was an inside job. I didn't work in a park. I worked in the office, and I was working on lots of reports, and it really set up my interest in graphic design. I learned all about putting words on a page and how to set them up and how to make a document interesting. And then I started my own graphic design business.
Well, I have your new book right here in front of me. It's called Snail Mail, Guide to Cursive Writing Practice. And I actually was showing it to Tanner, who's our audio engineer, who's here with me at the Portland Pod today. And he was saying, wow, that's a really attractive book. And I said, yes, actually, it really combines Chrissy's talents as a writer and a graphic designer. So you've really figured out how to express yourself beautifully in this book, and actually in the letters that we have been exchanging. I think now almost 5 years we've been writing to each other.
Yeah, that's right. We do write to one another, and it's great. And I think at first I didn't really. I've been writing letters for a really long time, but it took years for me to realize that one of the reasons I liked it, aside from the fact that I could reach out to people, is that I like to write. So my graphic design career has sort of started with just, doing the mechanics of it, using other people's words and images. And now I do a lot of my own work.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sending me your book. And also you sent me 3 of your cards. One's a postcard and then 2 different note cards. And it's so nice because you also put beautiful stamps on them for me. So it'll make it so easy for me to send them out. Actually, I'll probably send one of them back to you. But
that's great.
Yeah, so handwritten notes, it's something I love too, obviously. And what is it about handwritten notes that appeal to you so much?
Well, I think that one of the biggest things is that getting mail makes people feel special. So if you write a note to someone, they get it in the mail, and it's usually a surprise. Most people aren't expecting any mail, certainly not a handwritten note. So it comes as a surprise. And it's also, as you write a note, I find it brings the person closer to you. I'll sit down and I'll write their name, and then I sort of have a picture of them in my head. And I think about, as I write, what they might like to hear or what I might write about, so that it builds a connection that's different from any other kind of connection that we have, especially these days with computers and whatnot.
Yeah, I always advocate for handwritten notes because it is so much more personal than certainly a text or even an email. because people can actually hold on to, well, first of all, they can hold on to it. It's a physical memento that they can hold while they're reading, and then they can keep it on their desk or in a bureau drawer or whatever, so they can look back at it later. And actually, I'm looking at the 10 reasons to write a letter that you included in your book. So you have start a conversation, visit without traveling, get to know one another. Writing will give you a sense of accomplishment, and it can help say things that matter. You can express your creativity. The more you send, the more you get, which actually I love too, about sending letters and then getting them back. Mail makes people happy, and your composition skills will improve, and your handwriting will improve. So that's a really great top 10, what I'd call a listicle of reasons to write a letter. So thanks for including that in your book. And I also wanted to ask about using handwritten thank you notes in business. And again, that's something I try to do as well. How do you use it in your business?
I use them a lot. If I'm meeting with someone after the meeting, it's a nice way to reach back out and say thank you. Mention something that you talked about during the meeting. That's a great connection, and it helps them to remember you, because I'm sure that, again, people don't get a lot of postmark mail, so it's exciting to get it, and you'll stand out. So I think that's a good way. If you read an article, or that's another way to do it. I actually read an article in a magazine about tangible goods like brochures and things like that. And so I looked up the editor in the magazine, and I wrote a note to them. And it turns out it was the CEO of the company, which I had no idea, because they weren't listed that way. They were just listed as the editor. So that was exciting to get a response from them. It was an email response, and that happens a lot too, but that's okay. But they were really touched by the letter. So it can make an impression on people that's unexpected.
Definitely. And as you said, as emails become more and more of the way that people correspond in business, handwritten thank you notes are less and less common. And I'm always, when I talk to young people who are applying for jobs, or any people, I guess, who are applying for jobs, I always say that a handwritten thank you note will really give you a leg up after a job interview to help you be memorable. And I think it's a sign that your mother raised you right, basically. I know that, I have 2 sons in their 20s, and from the time they were little, when they got a gift of any kind, they would have to sit down and send a thank you note. And they still do that. And I'll tell you, my mother, who's 87 years old, just loves getting a letter from one of her grandsons, after a birthday or a holiday of any kind.
Well, that's right. I mean, and that's my mother. That's how I got started in it. My mother sat us down when I was quite young, probably first or second grade, and I have a memory of it, writing thank you notes to our grandparents for Christmas gifts. And I remember sitting on one step. I chose to take my space on the staircase, and I sat down and used the next step up as a table. And I was just fascinated to think that you could actually, write something, put it in an envelope, and send it. They lived, 5 states away. So I was really just quite amazed that it would work, and it did. And I've been writing ever since.
I know. I remember as a child going to the mailbox. I loved going to the mailbox every day. And actually, I still do. I just love getting the mail. And I've always been fascinated by the logistics of the Postal Service and how it connects the whole world. Like you can write a letter to somebody in South Africa or in Egypt or wherever, and they will receive it. And I know that there are people who are critical of the Postal Service now because it has slowed down, but it still works. It's very rare that something gets lost in the mail. And I like you, I just like to imagine somebody receiving my letter and opening it up and reading it. So that's been a big thing for me since I had pen pals as a child. And I don't really remember how I found my pen pals as a child. I think maybe there might have been a service through Highlights magazine. Did you subscribe to Highlights magazine when you were a child?
No, I never had pen pals when I was young. I have plenty of them now, but when I was younger, I wrote mostly to people I knew. And as I got a little older, one of the things I realized early on was I was when I first got married, my in-laws, I was way too shy. I couldn't even consider picking up the phone to make a call, but they were so pleasant and nice to me. I thought, well, there's got to be a way to sort of reach out and let them know that I think about them and appreciate them. So I started to write to them, and I would, and I think too, people get worried about, oh, I don't know what to write about. And in one letter, one of the first ones I ever wrote to them, it was I was thinking, sitting at my desk and, twiddling my pen around, and I thought, what can I write? And then I heard the chickens out back, not my chickens, the neighbor's chickens. And that's what I wrote. I said, the neighbor's chickens are squawking. And geez, didn't they love it? They just thought it was great to hear a story. So I think that's a big part of it too, is that we get to share our stories. We get to tell people. And I think, whether you tell a story or you say thank you, getting the mail is what makes people feel good because they know that you've been thinking about them.
Exactly. Yeah. They know that you've taken the time to sit down and, sometimes you have to look up their mailing address and you have to get the actual stationery and envelope and put a stamp on it and then put it in the mailbox. And it is a time that you're thinking of them and going through some effort. Now, I try to make it easy on myself I always have a stack of note cards and envelopes and stamps right by my computer, so it makes it easier. I actually wrote 3 thank you notes this morning before we did this podcast because yesterday I had a speaking engagement and wanted to thank the people that organized everything and made that possible. So I find great pleasure in it. It's a little nerdy, I think, but that's okay.
Well, I think that maybe we feel nerdy doing it, but I think that when they get it, they don't think that you're a nerd. I think it really does make them feel special. So it's worthwhile.
That's good. I'm glad. Now we're going into a little bit of therapy here. Well, it's so fun to connect with you. And actually, I was telling Tanner again that the way that you and I found each other is, I had written my first book in 2015, and it was in the Portland Public Library. And I think you had checked it out of the library, and then you reached out to me. I think you might have sent me a letter. And that's how it all started. I think it was in 2016 that we first connected.
Yeah, that's right. I saw it. Well, I was looking for a book on PR and I really wasn't finding much. And then, I went online and then I said, oh, I'll check the library. And sure enough, your book popped up and it was exciting to see that, someone local had done it. And I think that we did start writing letters after that, but I think we met because I saw you at a local networking event and I knew who you were because of your book. So I went over and introduced myself and used your book as the reason.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well,
and then we,
That's another reason to write a book, actually. Again, it's another way to make connections with people.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. And of course, we're going to talk a little more about your book, but first we're going to take a break and hear more about my book, which is called Grow Your Audience, Grow Your Brand. That's my newest book. It's available on Amazon.com, both as Kindle and paperback and Audible. And we're going to actually give away a copy of my book. If you go to prmaven.com/giveaway, you could be our next winner. And we'll be back in just a moment with more of our conversation with Christine Richards.
Do you want to grow your client or customer base? Perhaps increase brand awareness? Maybe tell your unique story more effectively? Of course you do. But you may be worried that you don't have enough expertise to make that happen. Well, no worries, PR Maven Nation. Let the PR Maven herself, Nancy Marshall, show you how easy it is to get your message across effectively using a powerful yet simple tool, a message map. Nancy's training is often called informative and constructive, well-designed and impactful, with a perfect blend of theory and real-life experience. You will leverage Nancy's expertise to create your own message map when you register for this comprehensive online video training course, which is broken down into 4 easy-to-understand modules. Normally, this course is priced at $147, but for listeners of the PR Maven podcast, That's you, PR Maven Nation. It's only $29 when you enter the code word podcast during enrollment. It even includes a workbook and bonus content to guide you through the process. So go to prmaven.com and click on the Message Map Mastery course to enroll today. Remember, enter the word podcast during enrollment for a special discounted price of $29.
Welcome back, and today we're talking with Christine Richards, who's a writer, nonfiction book consultant, and graphic designer at Composition 1206. I want to dive right back in with more questions. So, Chrissy, how can a book help to build business connections?
Well, I think we touched on it, Nancy, earlier. I think if you read a book and you reach out to the person, who knows who's going to read your book and who you might help with your book. And that's a big reason to write a book, to share your expertise, to help people. And when people see that you have a book, it sort of adds another level of respect, I think, in some respects, because you have, I talked to a woman who wrote a book and I asked her why she wrote it. And she said, well, one of the things is that it gives me street cred, which I thought was an interesting phrase. And I think it does. I think people will look at it and say, because it takes a lot of effort and time to write a book. It's not, it's not like a short piece that you can just dash off. You really have to consider what you're writing about and how you're going to do it. And it takes some time.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's all about establishing yourself as an authority in your niche area and having a book. And I have two now. It definitely helps with what I call authority marketing or personal branding. I know yesterday I gave a speaking engagement at a Chamber of Commerce, and it was actually live and in person, which was unique during COVID, but it was we were very careful and socially distant. But I did give out several sets of my two books as door prizes, and I think people really appreciated receiving my books, and it helps kind of extend the value of my speaking engagement because a lot of the same ideas that I shared while I was talking are in my books. So I definitely find that it's helpful. It's like the best business card ever, basically, if you give somebody your book.
Yeah, definitely. It's like a brochure, but it's a big one. And you get to really go into a subject that you might not have time to do in a blog post. And it's a way to, like you said, to get speaking engagements and hold workshops and that sort of thing. And just a really good way to reach people that you might not otherwise reach. So I think it's worthwhile.
I agree. But the next point is, why do you think it's important to get professional help with your book?
Oh, well, that's a good question. There are so many things that go into making a book. Of course, there's the writing, and then there's editing, which is endless sometimes, it seems. And then, of course, the design and the printing and promotion. There's lots of steps that go into it. And for most people, a business person, for instance, that writes a book might be really good at finance or PR, like you are, and you're good at what you do. But people like me, I know books and I know design, so I can help make your book a book that people will want to read.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm looking at your Snail Mail Guide to Cursive Writing Practice in front of me now. And, I think every school library in the state and across the country should have this book in it because I think children and adults alike will enjoy having this. The only thing, it's kind of written as a workbook. So in an ideal world, you wouldn't write in the library book, I guess. You would have a copy of your own so you can practice your cursive writing.
Yeah, there is a page, there's a link in the book to get practice sheets and download some stationery too to help people get started with that.
Oh, that's awesome. And I see that it was published in Middletown, Delaware. Is there a publisher there that you used?
No, that's just on Amazon. I published it through Amazon, and that's, I guess, where they print it.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, no, yeah, it's in the back of most books if they're printed through Amazon. It may not be Delaware, but it may be somewhere else, but they add that. I just wanted the book to get as widespread as it could, and I thought that Amazon would be a good way to do that because, of course, people might go on there looking for cursive writing books. Because a lot of schools have stopped teaching cursive writing, and that's another reason I wrote the book, because I think that writing, again, whether you write your own book or you write a letter, writing by hand can help us think sort things out, and just it's a different thinking process. So I think it's important if people are interested in trying to keep their cursive alive. I know people are embarrassed whenever I say, oh, I write letters, and they say, oh, I would love to write a letter, but I just, my handwriting, I just don't, it's just awful. So I'm trying to help people with that.
I think that's great because, I know my sons who are in their 20s did not have cursive writing practice when they were going to school because I guess teachers thought that they were going to just use keyboards. But I agree absolutely. I know that a lot of self-help programs and other kinds of self-improvement programs advocate for daily writing in a journal. I know recently I participated in a whole program called Miracle Mornings with this Hal Elrod, and he advocates for getting up early in the morning, like at 5 or 5:30 a.m., and doing some scribing, or journaling and exercise and reading and visualizing. He has a whole list of things that you should do to set your intentions for a good day. And I have been trying to do that lately. And certainly I enjoy cursive writing or printing. I enjoy writing of all kinds. So when I can actually set aside the time to do that in the morning, as well as some reading. And actually, I do sometimes write letters as well. It does kind of put me in a good place for a good day.
Yeah, and there's the book, The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, and she talks about the morning pages, which are very popular. And it's the same idea where you spend, I think she encourages you to write 3 pages longhand, which sounds like a lot. And again, she says, you sit down, and if you're not sure what to write about, just write up, I'm not sure what to write about, and just sort of keep going. And you never know where it'll take you. And it's a good exercise, like you said, to sort of help you start your day or get your thoughts down on paper or clear your head. That's what I like to do.
Oh, exactly. While you were talking just now, I was thinking clear your head because I think especially during COVID, with having less interaction with other humans, I sometimes get these thoughts that just swirl around and around in my head. It's like having a gerbil in there that's just stuck in my mind, and I just need to get the gerbil out. Next time you see me, just picture a gerbil running around in my brain.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So, what I think there's an expression for that. Isn't it called I guess an earworm is when you have a song in your head, but I don't know if there's a colloquial expression for when you have a thought stuck in your head.
Oh, I'm not sure. Maybe we can find out.
Or maybe they'll call it mental chatter, but yeah, I do find that when I get up and get outside and exercise, that helps to get the gerbil out and clear my mind.
Absolutely.
Chrissy, what is a book coach, and why would you hire someone to help you with your book?
Well, I think, a lot of people will say, and it's true, you write alone. And so when you have a book coach or an editor working with you, you basically have someone on your team. You can bounce ideas off them. You can ask them questions. And a book coach can help you sort of define your idea. When you start, you may have, all kinds of thoughts and things that you want to talk about, but of course you can't do everything in one book. So it's important to sort of distill it down and pick one thing. What's the point of your book? What do you want to talk about? So an editor can help you with that. And they can also help you stay on track. If you're tired of it or you start to wonder if it's even worth doing, an editor can sort of help you say, yeah, this is a great idea. We just got to keep going, and give you different tasks maybe to work on, maybe move to a different section, that kind of thing. So they offer encouragement when things get tough. I'm working with a client now, and she was really afraid to share her work. And once I got the file, I read through it, and I started talking to her about her book, she was really excited. She said, I don't know what I was so afraid of, she said. But it's hard to sometimes share your work with people. So an editor can help you bridge that gap, I think.
Yeah, I think it sometimes seems overwhelming, when you start writing. And I know there's the there's the image of the author who just sits in front of a blank screen for hours at a time and can't even get anything out. So that points back to what you said earlier. Who is the Daily Pages advocate?
Oh, the Artist Way. Yeah, Julia Cameron.
Right. Yeah. So I think sometimes if you've got writer's block and you can't think of what to write, just starting to write anything that's coming to mind, and then you can always edit that back. But I do know authors who, they don't try to edit as they go along. They just try to get words on the page, and then ideally they'd have a professional proofreader and editor like you who can help them fix up their work.
Absolutely. That's one of the most important things. I think that people, it is hard to edit your own work. You can do quite a bit of it, but then there comes a point where it is beneficial to have someone else read it and look at it. And, there are things with pacing and flow, and maybe one section might work better, not in this chapter, but in a different chapter, that sort of thing. So an editor can help you with that. They can look at the whole idea and say, or they can also say, well, you're really strong in this, and maybe that's where you want to focus. So they really look at it with a different set of eyes and sort of criteria that you wouldn't have. So it can be very helpful to have someone working alongside you. Or even if you've written your book, you can share it, towards the end, or, you can start with a developmental editor who can help you sort of plan the whole thing. But if you've written a lot of it, you can also just work with an editor to go through it and see, get some opinions and help you sort things out again.
Absolutely. It's kind of like ongoing feedback that you can get before you actually hit publish, and kind of save yourself some angst, even just having little typos that kind of detract from your final product. It's really great to get feedback on that and get those things corrected.
Yeah, because I think too, if someone picks up your book and it's poorly written or there's lots of mistakes, I mean, you're better off not even having written it at that point, because it'll leave a bad impression, and no one wants that. So, to do the work ahead of time and have someone read it. I had a woman help me with my book, and I had gotten along with it quite a bit, and I started to work with her, and she said, I think this section should move up. And I thought, geez, I think she's right. And I couldn't even see that. So it was good to have that guidance. And I think that's what a good editor will do for you. And you want to make it interesting. You want to have it and your word choice, your sentence structure, all those things are important. And people sometimes have a hard time with that, and they have good ideas, but the grammar and the more structural things can be harder for them. So an editor can help you with that as well.
Yeah.
And a proofreader.
Totally, because typos, just as you say, they detract. And, they essentially will hurt your personal brand because they'll give the impression that you do sloppy work, basically. So it is better to get professional help because I think, a book is a reflection of your personal brand, and you want it to be correct and professional.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that's the whole point. If you write one for your business, I think that what you're trying to do is to leave a good impression. So the best way to do that is to, write a good book and have an editor look at it and say, yeah, this is good. This we need to work on. And then, you'll end up with something that is worth reading, that looks good, and people want to read, because that's, if you pick up a book and if it's not well written, it's not going to go very far. So you wasted a lot of time if you don't, get the help you need. And it depends, some people need more help than other people. So, depending on how good a writer you are, or how much you need, someone to say, hey, you're doing a great job, you can decide how much help you need and when you need it.
Right. Hey, you're doing a great job, and keep on going, finish that book.
That's right. Yes. It goes a long way sometimes. Because I think too that, you need to, as an editor, it's important when I work with my clients, I tell them what's working with the book, because oftentimes there's a lot that's working really well. Of course, a lot of people will focus on what's not working. So, it's sometimes hard to give the tough feedback and say, well, this isn't working, or I think that you could change this, or I don't even think we need this in the book. Let's take it out. And that can be hard for a writer to say, oh boy, do we really have to get rid of that? So that can be discouraging. But then on the other hand, the editor can say, but here, you really, really, did a good job on this. This is clear and concise, and I think that's going to make a difference for the book. So it depends, and you get a little bit of both, which is important too, because if there's something that's not working, you definitely want to hear about that as well.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you on that. And I just wanted to say that I think you did a really great job with this cursive writing book, and I'm so honored that you sent it to me. And one thing I love about your design is the way you often put musical notes in different designs and different objects. So what is the origin of your, are you a musician, and did you play music? And is that why you often put music notes inside of other designs?
No, well, my fantasy is to be in a band, but that's never going to happen because I don't play an instrument. But I'm a graphic designer, and I've tried, so I move a lot of words and images around on a page. But oftentimes I use photographs or artwork from other people. But I have for a long time had wanted to find my own kind of expression through art, and I had a hard time with that. I tried painting and different things, and it was one winter, actually. It was, the days get so short here. And I was in the evening, and I thought, I just want something to do. I don't want to watch TV. So I thought maybe I'll try collage. And I started it, and it was okay, but I was using book pages and different papers and whatnot. And I really didn't like it because then there'd be a word on the page or in the piece of paper that I tore. And I was totally distracted by it. So then I'd try another page, and I'd spend 20 minutes looking for a page that didn't have a word I didn't like. So I said, forget it. But then I was walking in the neighborhood on a Saturday, and there was a yard sale, and a woman had these 3 enormous books of sheet music. And it was that light bulb moment. And I said, I could use that for my collage. So that's what I do. I paint the sheet music in different colors, and I cut it up and make my collage out of that. So I don't have to worry about words. It adds texture, which is a lot of fun sometimes. So that's what I use. And that's how that came about.
That is so cool. I love that story. And I don't know if I've ever seen an artist like you using, music in just the same way, but it really does add a lot. As you said, it adds a lot of texture. And especially if you know how to read music. I took piano lessons for many, many years, and so I do know how to read music. And I was just thinking about this yesterday because a lot of, when I was learning, I always thought of the correlation between my fingers on the keys. And I think, number 1 was like the C, D, E. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 would be C, D, E, F, G. So sometimes when I hear music, I try to go back to like the numbers that correspond. And it's just a weird thing. It goes back to, my piano lessons, which I took for a long time, although I didn't practice that much. I really enjoyed going to the piano lesson and talking to the teacher. Surprise!
And why is that not a surprise? That's funny.
I think it was the only class where I was actually allowed to just talk to the teacher, because usually in school I would get sent to the corner or sent out in the hall if I talked in class. So that did happen too.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, well, I don't read sheet music, I have to admit. And, there was a point where I worried about it, and I thought, people will be upset that I'm destroying sheet music. But I sometimes, print extra copies, or the 3 books that I bought, they were 25 cents a piece. And the woman said, well, you take them for 25 cents a piece or they're going to the dump. So I thought, well, I'm saving it in some respects. So
I think you were repurposing it. So
there you go.
Yeah. Well, Chrissy, this has been so fascinating. And I find every time I talk to you, I get so inspired to be more creative. And, the way that you write about your experiences and talk about your experiences, it just makes life seem so much more complete. So I want to thank you. And I hope that members of PR Maven Nation enjoyed the conversation as much as I did.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And every time I talk to you, I have to say I laugh more, and I'm happy. So that's always a good thing. And I really appreciate talking with you today. It's been great.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. And I hope everyone in PR Maven Nation has a great day today. That's it for this week's episode. I'd like to thank you for listening, and if you feel that you've gotten value out of today's conversation, consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever app you're using to tune in. If you haven't subscribed yet, you should do so. I release a new episode each week, and subscribing will make sure you get an alert when there's a new episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation by going to prmaven.com/nation and clicking join. It's free, and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you have an Alexa-enabled device, be sure to add the PR Maven Marketing Minute to your daily flash briefing menu. Thanks again for listening, and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.